pretty much every row home in Baltimore has the 3 or 4 bedrooms up on the second floor with a
Yep.
full bath. So boom, you're good there.
All right, let's kick this off. I got my man, Matt Riordan. He's the account executive for PadSplit in the DelMarVa region of the country. And if for those of us that are similar to myself, if you have no idea what DelMarVa means, I'll let Matt introduce himself and what his market is. Today, we're going to be talking about all things PadSplit as in terms of Baltimore, Philadelphia, DC, anything from the DelMarVa region, and he'll kind of get into it for you. But let's just kick it off. Matt, what do you got? Tell me about DelMarVa.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Quinn. I think this is a great idea to get some local information out to the public. So I'm excited to do this with you today. DelMarVa is basically a combination of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. So DelMarVa, and that's where I'm located. I've been with PadSplit close to a year now. I was in corporate America for a while, but found this opportunity and have just been running with it ever since. And we're rocking and rolling in, like you said, DC, Baltimore. We're just getting started in Philly, which is where I'm from. So that's super exciting as well. I hope to be a good resource for anybody that's looking to become a host, get in on the PadSplit platform, because I feel like I have some pretty good local knowledge, especially in Philly and increasingly in Baltimore. So again, any opportunity we can spread the word about it, is great. So I appreciate this.
Fantastic. All right. So in the PadSplit world, Baltimore is actually a relatively new market. So what I'm trying to figure out for our audience and everybody who's listening, if I'm a real estate investor and I'm looking at PadSplit as an option, and what makes Baltimore stand out, what has been successful for the investors that are currently there, and then if you can walk down through, some stories around which hosts or who's doing well, and what about that property and what about that host is making them successful.
Sure. So Baltimore is very unique for our platform, and I think Philly is going to kind of be the same way. So we're not looking at ranch properties that you might find down south. Obviously, Atlanta, Tampa, Jacksonville, some of our really great, successful southern markets. Usually the homes are built a little differently. What we have in Baltimore is called a row home. You could think of it as a townhome. So we're essentially, and I'll show you a picture of one of the properties that we've been working with, but we're essentially building up in Baltimore. So when we talk to our hosts about trying to find unused space in the property to maximize, your cash flow returns by creating extra bedrooms, for us, it's a little bit different in Baltimore than it would be in some other markets, and I can get into that. What's really great about Baltimore, and I have some metrics that I can share with you, Quint, and whoever's listening, that just kind of confirm what I've always thought. Baltimore is just a great PadSplit city because, A, we have the membership requests. There's a huge need for affordable housing in Baltimore. B, we have street parking just set up perfectly. We don't have to lay down concrete slabs or really concern ourselves with how to accommodate parking. And then Baltimore is a tough city. It's a little bit gritty. So, our platform, our folks doing a co-living model in town, folks are used to seeing, a lot of folks coming in and out of properties. So it's a really great fit. 9 times out of 10, we certainly have some challenges with certain areas of the city, but for the most part, it's going to be it already has been a winner, and it's only going to get better as we keep going. A lot in our favor for PadSplit.
Fantastic. So for people that started early, PadSplit, as you know, is the nation's largest co-living platform. The easiest way to kind of describe it is it's today's modern day version of a boarding house. Right. Our members, our tenants, our members who live with us. It's a fully furnished bedroom that has all the utilities included. It's one price that's fixed. It's fundamentally today's essential housing for essential workers. That's who our target audience is. And Baltimore's got plenty of it, good old Charm City. The interesting part about that is the acquisition. You want to talk about kind of, if I'm a geographically agnostic investor, so I'm a California guy, or I'm a Texas person, or I'm in New York, and heard about PadSplit, and then Baltimore. Why is Baltimore attractive from a financial perspective?
Yeah, so we find our hosts, the homeowners that get onto our platform, usually two different buckets. One would be someone who has an existing property and is looking to us as a better hold strategy than what they're doing now, and I can get into that. As far as acquisitions, folks that are acquiring properties to then put them on the platform, Baltimore has a lot of advantages. So they're in general, acquisition costs in Baltimore are much lower than other parts of the country. There's a lot of reasons for that, but right now that's a big advantage for folks that are, simply prospecting on real estate. There is a little bit of a revitalization going on in Baltimore, similar to what I saw in Philly about 10, 15 years ago. So you drive around, all it is workers and pickup trucks with
Wait a minute.
tools.
What do you mean what you saw? Can we say what we saw?
What we saw. Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep shutting you out of the Philly thing. We're both Philly natives for anybody who's listening here. So we know our city pretty well. But Baltimore's kind of going through some of that that we saw in Philly maybe a decade and a half ago. So I think just for prospecting purposes, I think it's a great market. But for PadSplit, it's going to be ideal for us. So I'll put it into terms like this. So if you're a nationwide investor and you wanted to acquire a PadSplit in Tampa, your acquisition costs are here. In Baltimore, they're here. Okay. But now in Tampa, I'm going to find bigger properties. So I might have a 7 or 8 bedroom that's going to cash flow better. In Baltimore, we may only have room for 4 or 5. Okay. But the delta is going to be the same for the most part, because the acquisition costs in Baltimore are not as onerous as you're going to have, in some of our southern markets. So I always encourage folks to, do their research. We can connect investors to local real estate agents who not only know the Baltimore market, but know the PadSplit platform and what's going to be successful and what might not be. So there's a lot of resources that go behind that.
All right. So every real estate investor that I've come across, the number one thing they say is real estate is local. Real estate is local. I've heard great things about Baltimore, and then I have heard, I don't know if I've heard it, but like, I think of The Wire, I don't know if that's necessarily true or false, but how do I know where to invest?
Yeah, so that's where having resources that are local is a big advantage for, our national investors. So it's not only myself. It's a vendor network that we've built out in Baltimore that's all kind of focused on the same thing. It's finding these properties that are going to make sense for affordable housing. PadSplit, we're in it because we're a business and we're looking to scale up, but we have a lot of folks that are just so bought into that philanthropic idea of helping folks out that it's taken off from a resources perspective. So if you're in California and you get on a phone call with me and you're very interested in Baltimore, we can simply do the Zillow thing, kind of share my insights about the particular neighborhood. We also have property managers that we work with exclusively, real estate agents that are tied into our program. So there's no shortage of resources for us. The comment about The Wire, you and I are from Philly, we're city kids, so we've seen it all. Baltimore certainly has its areas that are going to be rougher than others. There's certain areas of town where we just can't do this, as much as we'd like to help folks out, it's just not going to make sense from some of the neighborhood perspectives. What the answer I give, and people don't really like hearing it, but I'm telling you, it's true. Baltimore definitely has kind of a good block, bad block. And I'm not saying bad because they're bad people. It's just a little bit rough. And you can find those within walking distance of each other. So it does get a little bit granular as far as the specific address. Again, there are certain neighborhoods that we think are going to be more successful than others. And that's part of the education I like to bring to the table for both Baltimore and Philadelphia, because I know Philly very well as well.
Okay. So is it, when you say it's block by block?
It can be, yeah.
So I live in Atlanta now, right? So if I want to go and talk to you, is it you that I talk to specifically about which properties work? Like, what's the best way for me to start figuring out, what deal flow looks like?
Correct. So we kind of have our sales process. So folks that are interested in our platform simply go onto the website, or you can reach out to me directly. I don't know if my information is going to get posted on this, but
of course,
Okay, great. Anything from Baltimore and Philly, if you're watching this broadcast, you'll be able to contact me directly. That's my job. I'm here to help try and build up these two markets. But if you're just going through the process, you want to check it out on the website, please do that. You feel free to sign up as a host. There's no real obligation. It just kind of unlocks some things on the website and gets one of our reps in touch with you. Typically, we'll start out with a phone call, just kind of get to know your story a little bit, and then that would get funneled to me as the Baltimore rep. And then you and I would be on for a virtual call. It typically takes about a half hour. I go through the slide presentation, make sure I answer all your questions. And then a lot of times we'll have time left over for specific property Q&A. If that process goes well and it looks like, boy, we could have a good fit, that's when I would get feet on the ground, take a look at the property, consult with my property management company, because you're in California. You're not going to, be able to go do that. I'll tell you a story right now. We have 3 properties about to get onboarded, and the gentleman lives in Thailand. So this can be as passive as you need it to be, because our partnership with our property management company allows it to be passive. We basically do everything for you. And as long as the math makes sense, as you always say, it's all about the math. We can do it and make it a passive thing. Certainly our hosts, whether they're in Thailand or California or wherever, they're going to have access to the portal that we provide. That's going to give them the real-time data. How's my occupancy rate? How are my room rent rates doing? What's the performance of all my properties? So there's ways to monitor it and be on top of it, but it can certainly be completely passive for our hosts. And that's an attractive thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Give me a ballpark figure. Like let's talk about some of the guys that or women or investors, right? So do you have an example of somebody that's currently come on, and can you walk through kind of what acquisition costs would look like, conversion costs would look like, furniture, like what did they all have to go through? Because a lot of the people that are going to come to our platform, they're one of many buckets, right? It's either I own a property and it's underperforming, right? I have a Airbnb or a short-term rental. It's underperforming. Right now I know we've seen a big surge of folks that have furnished finders, things listed on there. They're underperforming, right? Because traveling nurses aren't traveling so much, and that market is drying up. Kind of talk me through process for, let's say, if I'm just a person that's looking to acquire, what does that look like? What's the time frame look like, and the cost? Like, I know Atlanta really well. Total project costs are about $300,000 to $350,000 all in. Room rates are what they are in Atlanta, and it underwrites correctly. What do the numbers and the underwriting typically look like for Baltimore?
Sure. It's a good question, because we've kind of seen it all. We have an Airbnb conversion. The gentleman purchased the property for about $325,000, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Wasn't getting the bookings that he wanted. Went over to our platform and had very little upfront costs. As you know, Airbnbs are almost set up to be pad splits. These are individual rooms, nice beds. They're usually set up for success for us. So in that case, the conversion was almost nothing. Some smart locks, things like that. I have a contractor. I talked to him today. He bought a property for $15,000 about 6 months ago. And he's a construction guy. So if he was charging someone, that would be $120,000 rehab, but he can do it himself with his own crew.
Wow.
So, he's gutting the property. He's certainly putting his money into it, but because he has those type of skills and he has a team, he's taking a $15,000 property, putting 85 grand into it. And now you have a 5-bedroom pad split. So that's 7-8 month rehab. And then that's we can get you on the platform tomorrow. To your point, the traveling nurses, I talked to somebody today about it. It's a big topic of conversation. It's just not as plentiful as it used to be. The nurses aren't getting paid what they used to be. We've also met some folks that are doing the sober home platform. And if anybody's familiar with that, that's kind of a government subsidized operation where you have folks that are trying to, go through rehab and, get their lives back in order. And it's a pretty lucrative program if you can secure that contract. Problem is now they're going through extra regulations too, just kind of like Airbnb. So there's frustration going around in a lot of these with these hold strategies that people have had for years. And we're really there to kind of pick up the pieces, because as you know, we're not a short-term rental, so we're not coming under the Airbnb, issues. And then again, some of these hold strategies that have been great for years now starting to slow down. So become a good option for that. So to answer your question, it's a little bit of everything right now. The Airbnb gentleman decided to have amenities with his property, and he's charging a very high weekly rate. We have some in
What's he
tougher
charging,
areas.
Matt?
He has 5 rooms and per average $250 per week per room.
Good
So
for him.
it's a really bad example to share with everybody because it's not realistic for most properties, but it does tell you, how high you can get depending on where he's at. Now he's in a neighborhood called Union Square, which is a great neighborhood. If we're getting deep into Baltimore, I love Union Square. I love Patterson Park. I love
Come on, feed it to me, Matt. People are going to be on Zillow looking.
Yeah, love Curtis Bay. I love Dundalk.
Yeah.
Dundalk's a little town just outside. It's very blue collar.
Do we like Bedford Edison?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with those spots.
Okay.
Quentin, but you know what makes for a good pad split opportunities. We just can't be in a cul-de-sac and trees and Subarus like that because our people are good people, but as we all know, sometimes it can raise some eyebrows in a certain neighborhood if we have 6 people coming in and out of a property. But Baltimore is chock full of the right type of neighborhoods for us. So we're all very bullish on how Baltimore is going to turn out for us.
How are we doing for time to fill? Like, what's my revenue going to look like in terms of is the demand there? First of all.
Yeah, no, the only reason we're in Baltimore and the only reason that we enter any market that we're in is because we understand the lay of the land. We're not going to enter a market in where the metrics are telling us that affordable housing isn't really a huge need.
Yeah.
If we're in a market and you get on our platform and it's a core market and we don't fill your property, then we're not doing our job. So we're not going to enter into a market unless we're completely confident in our ability to fill up these properties. Right now, we're at about 45 doors in Baltimore over the course of about 4 months since we launched.
Yep.
So it's exponentially kind of picking up steam. And I'm hoping to get to 100 doors here pretty soon. We'll have a big party in Baltimore and, take our hosts out for dinner and things like that. But yeah, it's ramping up. As far as time to book a property, we had one that took about 8 days to get all 5 rooms.
Oh, wow.
We've had a couple that took about 2 weeks.
Right.
The beauty of it the initial setup is going to be, it's going to range, and it depends on the property, the pictures, how it looks, obviously. Yeah. But what our real, I think, strength is if we have to have someone move out and someone move in, that rebooking process is pretty quick. So, the travails of having a single family home, if that goes south, we've got nothing coming in. On a pad split, if you have a 6-bedroom and 1 bedroom, the guy got laid off, he's got to move out, you're still getting those other 5 streams of revenue. And us rebooking that 6-bedroom does not take us very long at all. All of the metrics for us speak to us having long-term success, definitely.
Sounds good. So what's the momentum there? Like, what are the investors that are in Baltimore in the DelMarVa area? I found that in our newer markets, they didn't know we existed, right? And then there's going to be early adopters, right? What is what's the sentiment of retail or real estate investors when you meet them and they first learn about us?
I think it's really exciting for most of them, especially when we kind of explain how we do what we do, because most people don't think we can do it. Like it's not, legal or something. So when we explain kind of, our process to work with local government, make sure that we're compliant. Once they kind of get their heads around that, they know, like I do, especially folks that are local here, how big of a need it's going to be. And how much demand we have and how little supply right now because we're new. So it's like those folks that are kind of getting in on the ground floor right now, they're in a good spot. And we find a pad split, a lot of our hosts that'll do the dip the toe. I just want to try one property out, see how it goes. Typically within the first 12 months of working with them, we'll get another 2 properties on board, depending on their portfolio, So the proof of concept's always tough in a new market. We didn't have a whole lot of data on room rent rates, obviously, when we came up here, but we found out that our room rent rates are actually pretty decent. We're on a pretty good side of things. Being up here in the Northeast, I know Baltimore is a tough city. It's not, an especially wealthy city, But the room rent rates are higher up here than some of our southern markets. So I think that's really attractive for our investors as well.
Yeah, I think like one of the big learnings we had is that whether the members that come and stay at our pad splits, right, their value proposition to them is huge. You know, when we have members that are comparing a pad split fully furnished with all utilities included for 200 to 220 a week, one fixed cost, weekly rental motels, which are not necessarily located in great areas, range from $75 to $100 a week, right? So like those, or I'm sorry, a day. My apologies, it's a day, right? So you're looking at something like under $700 to stay there versus coming to join PadSplit, get a membership, and then you can book a room amongst any of these rooms in these different locations at 200 to 225. That's a win-win, you know, for members looking for an alternative place. So that was a huge learning, is that like the demand is so high for safe, affordable housing.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win, right? For our members, it's a win. For our hosts, it's a win. For PadSplit, it's a win. Our members, and when I came on board, Quent, you know, I was like everybody else that I talked to. It's like how are these folks getting along? All I can see is issues, and I don't want to deal with that stuff. And, you know, some people don't have the stomach for this, I guess. I don't know. But what's been really, really cool to see since I've come on board is that that's just not as big an issue as you would think, because to your point, you know, somebody in Baltimore, if you want to find a studio apartment, you're looking 1,500. You add the utilities onto that. Plus you have to pass your credit check. Plus you have to first month's, last month's security deposit. I mean, it's just onerous for these folks. So, you know, to come into a pad split all in for $1,000 a month, as opposed to, you know, 1,900, it's just a real game changer for these folks. And they do not take this opportunity for granted. They know if they come into a pad split and they're not operating under the rules that we set down for co-living, they're going to lose that opportunity, never have it again. So it's really been kind of heartwarming, honestly, to see how folks are getting along so that they can, you know, maximize their time, get financial empowerment, do pad split for a good 9 months, and go on to bigger and better things. It's been really cool.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, we're going to try to bring it on home. Is there anything specific that an investor or anybody else that if they need to know about Baltimore, is there any nuggets that you want to drop?
Yeah, so the basements are always tricky, right? So down south, a lot of times you can convert basement space because we have the egress. Either it's a slanted thing, we got a back door. Baltimore, the basements are hit or miss. About half of them are just unusable because they don't have the window egress. Yeah. So then we have owners actually using that for storage. So for some of our members who have just, you know, a sleeping bag and some other things, it's not a big deal. But for some of our members that, you know, have a lot of stuff they want to bring to pad split, having that basement space, having that amenity, you know, it's another $15 a week if you want to have the storage down the basement. So we have hosts getting creative in Baltimore with the basement space. When we can convert the basement, it's really great because pretty much every row home in Baltimore has the 3 or 4 bedrooms up on the second floor with a full bath. So boom, you're good there. If we can get the basement conversion for an extra bedroom, that's really when the math starts to work, because again, mortgages in Baltimore are nowhere near what they're going to be in Miami or Tampa. So making that delta between paying off my mortgage, paying the pad split fees, paying the utilities, you know, we can still be there in Baltimore on a 5-bedroom, which is unique. So it's really cool.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, really bullish on Baltimore, really bullish on Philadelphia and DC. You know, the average market rate rent for DC, like, it's really hard because in our world, you know, as you know, there just isn't affordable housing available for the workforce. And, you know, when we say essential housing for essential workers, like COVID told us who our member base is, right? The government told us who essential workers are. And that's who's actually living in our facilities, right? And our pad splits across is everybody who's working from the grocery store to the school district to the police department, you know, like anywhere in between, including, you know, Uber drivers to Amazon workers. So across the board, if you're making between $35,000 and $85,000 just to get into like a regular apartment complex, like you said, Matt, it's like $6,000 first, last, and some deposit numbers. What we really have found that the value prop to our members is we're solving the barrier of entry into a safe, affordable place to live. And I think that's the thing it's amazing, is that we ask our members in a poll, why PadSplit? And I think, the choices are it's fast, cheap, but in reality, what they meant to say or are trying to say is we provide access, right? And I think that's the beauty of it. Yeah, Matt, it's been great catching up. I don't know if anybody else knows this, but like I've known Matt since 6th grade, so this is it's a pleasure to work with my man.
It's been great. Yeah, so we've known each other a long time, and
shout out to Greenfield,
shout
Albert
out to
M.
shout out to Central High. Shout out to Fat Rob. No one knows who he is, but love that kid. And shout out to Baltimore and Philly, and anybody who's watching this. Again, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm very happy to take calls, emails all day long. This is my job, hoping to build up these markets. And Baltimore, I think we're on our way to making it a home run. I think Philly is going to be an absolute grand slam. So please, anybody who's watching this, feel free to reach out, ask me any questions. I'm happy to help any way I can here. And,
sounds good. I'm going to put your contact information at the bottom. Everybody who wants to get a hold of Matt Riordan, he'll get it done. And it's great catching up with you, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thanks, Quint. Appreciate it.